At first glance, it looks impossible. A parrot that can't fly, climbing a tree in the dark. A massive vulture spreads its wings, nearly 10 feet wide. Yet the sky it once ruled has almost disappeared. And somewhere on a quiet island, a bird calls out, with no answer. This isn't the distant past. This is happening now, in our lifetime. Across forests, islands, deserts, and coastlines, some of the most extraordinary birds on Earth are slipping quietly toward the edge. Not with explosions or headlines, but with shrinking habitats, empty nests, and long silences where songs once echoed. Scientists warn that by the year 2050, several of these species may be gone forever. In this film, you'll meet 17 birds unlike any others, creatures shaped by millions of years of evolution, each playing a role far bigger than their size. You'll see how they live, how they struggle, and how close they are to disappearing. Because this moment matters. What vanishes with them isn't just feathers and wings, it's balance, memory, and stories older than civilization itself. So here's the question we'll return to, again and again. When the last call fades into silence, will anyone remember what was lost? The light breaks over the forest canopy, a lone silhouette takes flight, and its future hangs in the air. Here's a strange truth to start with. This parrot is famous for doing almost everything wrong. It can't fly, it's active at night. And when it wants to attract a mate, it doesn't sing sweetly. It booms, low, echoing calls that roll across New Zealand's forests like distant thunder, which is bold behavior for a bird trying not to be noticed. The kakapo lives only in New Zealand, mostly on predator-free islands now, because on the mainland, it didn't stand a chance. Evolution shaped it in a world without mammalian predators, so it never learned to flee. Instead of flying away, a kakapo freezes, which worked perfectly until humans arrived with rats, cats, and stoats. Suddenly, staying still wasn't clever anymore. It was fatal. Physically, the kakapo is unmistakable. A large moss-green parrot with yellow highlights and soft, owl-like facial feathers. Its plumage blends beautifully into forest undergrowth, especially at night. During the day, it rests quietly in burrows or beneath dense vegetation. At night, it climbs trees using strong legs and beak, feeding on leaves, shoots, seeds, fruit, and bark. Yes, this parrot is mostly vegetarian. No nuts crack midair here. Just slow, careful foraging under moonlight. Breeding is where things get even stranger. Kakapo don't breed every year. They wait for specific trees to produce heavy fruit crops, sometimes only once every few years. Males gather at traditional display sites and inflate their chests, producing those deep booming calls, hoping females will wander in. No nests built together, no shared parenting. Once mating is done, the male disappears entirely. Charming, right? Here's a question worth debating. Does being uniquely adapted make a species resilient or dangerously fragile? Because when the environment shifts, specialization can become a trap. Today, every kakapo is individually named, monitored, and protected. Fewer than 300 remain. They are among the most managed wild birds on Earth, and still their future isn't guaranteed. And if a flightless parrot that survived millions of years can vanish this fast, what happens to the next bird that never learned to run? This bird became extinct in the wild before most people even learned how to pronounce its name. A bright blue macaw from Brazil vanished not in some ancient era, but in full view of cameras, scientists, and satellite maps, which raises an uncomfortable question right away. How does a species disappear when everyone is already watching? Spix's macaw was never widespread. It lived in a very narrow strip of gallery forest along seasonal rivers in northeastern Brazil, depending heavily on one specific tree species for nesting. Take away that tree, dry up the riverbanks, and suddenly the entire world of this bird collapses into a few scattered pockets. Its habitat was hot, dry, and fragile. Thorny scrublands interrupted by ribbons of green forest that only existed because water briefly passed through. Physically, the bird was striking, but understated for a macaw. Soft powder blue feathers, darker wings, pale gray head, and a long tail built for controlled flight rather than flashy acrobatics. Its calls were sharp and nasal, used to keep contact with a mate rather than to dominate the forest soundscape. And yes, this was a loyal bird. Spix's macaws form strong pair bonds, often staying close together while feeding on seeds, fruits, and nuts gathered from native trees. Predators were not the main problem. Humans were. Deforestation removed nesting sites. Trapping for the pet trade removed individuals faster than the population could replace them. And because the species was already rare, every single loss mattered more than usual. When the last wild bird disappeared around the year 2000, there was no dramatic moment. Just silence. Here's something worth arguing about. Does saving a species in captivity still count if the wild version is already gone? Because today, Spix's macaw survives only because of captive breeding programs. Carefully paired birds, monitored eggs, human-managed reintroductions. It's conservation under a microscope. The species is now being released back into parts of its former range. But survival in the wild isn't guaranteed. Predators, unfamiliar landscapes, and lost knowledge all stand in the way. These birds must relearn what nature once taught them automatically. And that leaves us with a bigger thought. If a species can vanish quietly while the world is paying attention, what chance does the next one have when no one is looking? Here's a wild contradiction to open with. This is one of the largest flying birds on Earth, and for a moment it completely disappeared from the sky. By the 1980s, the California condor was functionally gone in the wild. Not rare, not declining, gone. Which is ironic for a bird built to soar hundreds of miles without a single wing beat. The condor's natural range once stretched across much of western North America. Cliffs, open grasslands, deserts, coastal mountains, anywhere big carcasses were available, and thermals could lift a massive wingspan into the air. With wings reaching nearly 10 feet across, the condor isn't designed for speed or agility. It's designed for patience. It circles slowly, reading the land for death, feeding almost entirely on carrion. No hunting, no killing. Just recycling what's already fallen. Its feathers are mostly black, broken by stark white patches under the wings that flash during flight. The bare head, pink, orange, sometimes yellow, changes color with mood and health. And yes, it looks prehistoric because in many ways it is. Condors once shared the landscape with mammoths and saber-toothed cats. They outlived them all, but struggled to survive us. The main threat wasn't bullets aimed at condors. It was lead left behind. Tiny fragments from ammunition embedded in carcasses poisoned birds that fed on them. Add habitat loss, slow reproduction, and human disturbance, and the math turned brutal. Condors breed late, lay a single egg, and may only raise one chick every couple of years. There's no room for mistakes in that life strategy. Here's a question worth debating. Should a wild animal that depends entirely on human management still be called wild? Because today's condors are tracked, monitored, vaccinated, and sometimes even taught where it's safe to feed. Chicks are raised with puppet heads to prevent human imprinting. Every bird is known, every death investigated. Their numbers are rising slowly. You can see them again over California, Arizona, Utah, a heavy shadow gliding across rock and sky. But survival still hangs on human choices. What we leave behind, what we clean up, and what we decide matters. And if a bird this big can vanish almost unnoticed, what happens to the next one that leaves an even smaller shadow? Here's the uncomfortable irony. This bird is one of the heaviest flying birds on the planet, and it's being defeated by things barely taller than a human. Power lines, fences, infrastructure. The great Indian bustard doesn't vanish quietly because it's weak. It vanishes because the modern world is very bad at noticing large, slow-moving lives. Once widespread across the grasslands and semi-deserts of India, this bird depended on wide open spaces, flat horizons, low vegetation, and uninterrupted sightlines. It's a ground dweller by nature, walking deliberately through grasslands in search of insects, seeds, berries, and small reptiles. Flight is possible, but not casual. Taking off requires space, timing, and a clear path. And increasingly, those paths are gone. Physically, the great Indian bustard is unmistakable. Tall, long-legged, with a heavy body and contrasting black crown, pale neck, and sandy brown wings that blend into dry landscapes. Its movements are slow, measured, almost cautious. When disturbed, it prefers to walk away rather than flush into the air, which worked perfectly until the ground itself became dangerous. Breeding behavior adds another layer of vulnerability. Males perform elaborate courtship displays, inflating a throat pouch and strutting across open ground to attract females. It's visually impressive and extremely exposed. Nests are simple scrapes on the ground, no cover, no protection. Eggs and chicks are easy targets for predators and for accidental destruction by vehicles and livestock. Here's a question worth arguing over. Should development always come with invisible costs we simply accept? Because one of the leading causes of death for this species is collision with overhead power lines. The bustard's forward-facing vision is limited while flying, and those cables arrive too late to avoid. One impact is enough. Today, fewer than 200 individuals are believed to remain. Conservation efforts focus on habitat protection, underground power lines, and captive breeding, but progress is slow. Grasslands are often dismissed as empty land, and when land looks empty, it becomes expendable. The great Indian bustard isn't failing because it can't adapt. It's failing because its world changed faster than its biology ever could. And if a bird this large can be erased from open landscapes in plain sight, what hope does a smaller one have when the pressure comes from every direction? Here's a striking imbalance to begin with. This eagle rules the sky, yet it's trapped by the ground beneath it. The Philippine eagle is one of the largest and most powerful forest raptors on Earth, but its survival depends entirely on something fragile and disappearing fast: old-growth rainforest. This species exists only in the Philippines, spread across a handful of large islands where dense, towering forests once stretched unbroken for miles. It is a bird built for vertical worlds: long, broad wings for maneuvering between trees, massive talons for gripping prey, and an intense, forward-facing gaze that misses very little. Despite its size, it rarely soars in open skies. Instead, it moves through forest canopies with controlled, deliberate flight. The eagle's appearance is unmistakable. A shaggy crest of long brown feathers frames the head like a crown. The back is dark, the underside pale, and the eyes, steel blue, seem permanently focused. Its call is loud and piercing, echoing through valleys as a territorial warning rather than a song. When you hear it, you know something large and alert is nearby. Diet-wise, this eagle is adaptable but demanding. Flying lemurs, monkeys, large birds, snakes, whatever the forest offers. Hunting requires vast territory because prey densities are low. One pair may need dozens of square kilometers to survive. Which brings us to the problem. Forests in the Philippines are being fragmented into pieces too small to support that kind of life. Breeding is slow, painfully slow. A pair raises just one chick every 2 years. The nest is built high in massive trees, reused and repaired over time. If that tree is cut down, decades of reproductive effort vanish with it. No backup plan, no quick recovery. Here's a question worth debating. Can a top predator survive if the ecosystem beneath it is hollowed out? Because when forests shrink, this eagle doesn't just lose space. It loses food, nesting sites, and separation from humans who may see it as a threat or a trophy. Fewer than 1,000 Philippine eagles are believed to remain in the wild. Each one is known. Each one matters. And yet illegal logging and land conversion continue to press inward. This bird was never meant to live in fragments. It was designed for a continuous, breathing forest. And as those forests break apart piece by piece, the next species we meet faces a threat that travels even farther than chainsaws, across oceans, coastlines, and continents. Here's the paradox. This bird weighs less than a slice of bread, yet it travels halfway around the planet every single year. The spoon-billed sandpiper is tiny, delicate, and equipped with one of the most unusual bills in the bird world. A flat, spoon-shaped tip that looks almost like a mistake of evolution. And yet it works perfectly. until the world around it stopped cooperating. This species breeds in a very narrow strip of coastal tundra in far northeastern Russia. Open, windswept ground, short summers, long daylight hours. When the breeding season begins, males perform fluttering display flights, singing thin, buzzing songs over the tundra. Nests are shallow scrapes on the ground, exposed to weather and predators, but timed precisely to match bursts of insect life. That spoon-shaped bill isn't for show. It's used to sweep side to side through shallow water and mud, detecting tiny crustaceans and invertebrates by touch. This feeding style depends on intact tidal flats, soft, living mud full of microscopic life, which explains the problem. During migration, these birds rely on a chain of coastal stopover sites across Asia. If even one of those links breaks, the entire journey can fail, and many links have already broken. Coastal development, land reclamation, pollution, and aquaculture have erased feeding grounds from China to Southeast Asia. The sandpiper arrives hungry, exhausted, and finds concrete where mud once breathed. Here's something worth debating. How do you protect a species whose home exists in pieces, scattered across dozens of countries? Because the spoon-billed sandpiper doesn't belong to one nation. It belongs to a flyway. And flyways are fragile agreements between geography, timing, and survival. Predators take their share, foxes, birds of prey, but human activity is the dominant pressure. Nets set for other birds catch them by accident. Disturbance pushes them from feeding areas they cannot afford to lose. And reproduction can't compensate. Clutches are small, survival rates are low. Today, fewer than a few hundred breeding pairs are thought to remain. Conservationists hand-rear chicks, protect nests, and monitor migration routes. But every year is a race against erosion, development, and time. And if a bird this small can connect continents with its wings, what happens when those connections disappear? Here's a quiet surprise. This macaw was hiding in plain sight. For decades, people assumed it was just a color variant of a more common species, until scientists realized it was something entirely different. By then, its world had already shrunk to a thin ribbon of savanna in northern Bolivia. The blue-throated macaw lives in seasonally flooded grasslands dotted with palm islands, especially stands of the mutaku palm. This is not dense rainforest. It's open, sunlit, and exposed. Hot during the day, cool at night, and shaped by water that comes and goes. The macaw's distribution is extremely limited, confined to a few isolated pockets where palms provide both food and nesting sites. Visually, it's striking. A bright turquoise blue body, long tail, and most distinctive, a vivid blue patch on the throat beneath a bare, yellowish face. In flight, its wings beat slowly and deliberately, producing a deep, rhythmic sound. Its calls are loud, nasal, and far-carrying, used to keep contact with a mate or warn of disturbance across open terrain. Diet is specialized. The macaws rely heavily on palm fruits and seeds, especially during the dry season. Strong beaks crack hard shells with ease, but only if the palms are present. Remove the palms and the menu collapses. Predators include raptors and nest-raiding mammals, but historically, populations remain stable. The real pressure arrived from humans. Trapping for the pet trade hit this species hard. Their bright colors and calm temperament made them desirable, and because populations were already small, losses were devastating. Add habitat conversion for cattle ranching, and nesting trees disappeared along with feeding grounds. Breeding behavior is slow and selective. Pairs form long-term bonds. Nests are placed high in palm cavities, reused year after year. Clutches are small, and not all chicks survive. There's little margin for error. When one adult is removed, the pair often fails to breed at all. Here's a question worth arguing. Can a species survive when its entire future depends on a single type of tree? Because for this macaw, palms aren't optional. They are infrastructure. Today, fewer than a few hundred individuals remain in the wild. Conservation efforts focus on protecting palm islands, providing nest boxes, and preventing illegal trade. Numbers have stabilized in some areas, but stability isn't safety. And if a bird this bright can almost disappear without most of the world noticing, what chance does the next quieter species have? Here's an unexpected opener. This bird once guided human calendars. Long before satellites or climate models, people watched the northern bald ibis to know when seasons were shifting. And now, it's the bird that almost vanished before most of us noticed it was missing. The northern bald ibis favors dry, rocky landscapes, cliffs, semi-deserts, and open steppe near river valleys. Today, its remaining wild populations are confined mainly to Morocco, with small reintroduced groups in parts of the Middle East. Historically, its range stretched across North Africa, Southern Europe, and Western Asia. That range collapsed not slowly, but decisively. Physically, the bird is impossible to confuse. A glossy black body with metallic green and purple sheen, long legs and a curved red bill designed for probing soil. But the most striking feature is its bare reddish head, topped with a shaggy crest at the back. No feathers, no camouflage. It looks ancient, almost ceremonial. In flight, it moves with steady, powerful wing beats, often traveling in loose formations between feeding grounds and cliffside roosts. Its calls are harsh, grating croaks, used to maintain contact within colonies. This is a social species. It nests in groups, feeds in flocks, and relies on collective vigilance rather than secrecy. Diet consists mainly of insects, larvae, small reptiles, and other invertebrates pulled from dry soil and grassland. That feeding style requires open land that hasn't been paved, sprayed, or overgrazed. Breeding takes place on cliff ledges where pairs build nests close to one another. Chicks are dependent for weeks, and breeding success is tightly linked to food availability. When feeding grounds degrade, reproduction collapses almost immediately. Here's something worth debating. Does visibility make a species safer or more vulnerable? Because colonial living made the northern bald ibis easy to monitor, but also easy to disturb. Hunting, habitat conversion, and pesticide use wiped out entire colonies at once. Add collisions with power lines along migration routes, and losses multiplied. Predators exist, foxes, raptors, but human pressure has been the deciding factor. By the late 20th century, the species had disappeared from Europe entirely. Today, conservation programs carefully manage remaining colonies and attempt reintroductions using guided migration. Every nest is counted, every fledgling tracked. Survival now depends on human memory as much as habitat. And if a bird once used to measure time itself can slip so close to erasure, what happens to the species that never had a place in our history at all? Here's a hard truth to start with. This parrot migrates across open ocean every year and still can't outrun extinction. The orange-bellied parrot is one of the smallest parrots in the world, yet it performs one of the most dangerous journeys of any parrot species. Twice a year, it crosses the vast strait between mainland Australia and Tasmania, guided by instinct, wind, and very little margin for error. This species breeds only in southwestern Tasmania, nesting in tree hollows near buttongrass moorlands and coastal heath. The environment is cool, windswept, and unpredictable. During the non-breeding season, the parrots migrate north to coastal Victoria and South Australia, where they depend on salt marsh habitats, flat, muddy landscapes most people barely notice, and developers are quick to erase. Physically, the bird is subtle but distinctive. Mostly green plumage, a bright yellow chest, and, true to its name, a small but vivid orange patch on the belly, visible mainly in flight. The wings show blue edging, and the tail feathers flash darker tones as the bird twists through coastal winds. Its call is a soft, high-pitched twitter, easy to miss unless you're listening closely, which is fitting because this species often disappears in silence. Diet is highly specialized. The parrots feed on seeds and grasses found almost exclusively in salt marsh plants. When those plants vanish, there's no alternative menu waiting nearby. Predators include raptors and introduced mammals, but the greatest threat is habitat loss combined with an unforgiving life cycle. Breeding is slow and risky. Pairs rely on specific nesting hollows, often competing with other birds. Clutches are small, and chick survival varies wildly with weather conditions. One bad season can erase years of progress, and there have been many bad seasons. Here's a question worth debating. How do you save a species when its survival depends on two distant places being healthy at the same time? because protecting breeding grounds means nothing if winter feeding areas collapse, and vice versa. Today, the wild population fluctuates dangerously low, sometimes fewer than 50 individuals. Conservationists supplement food, manage nests, and even release captive bred birds. Every migration is monitored. Every return is counted. And if a parrot brave enough to cross an ocean can still be brought this close to disappearance, what happens to the next bird whose journey is even longer and whose landing sites are already gone? Let's start with the most dangerous fashion accessory in the bird world. The helmeted hornbill wears a solid block of keratin on its head. Not hollow, not decorative. Solid, dense, heavy, and unfortunately, worth more on the black market than ivory. That single biological detail has pushed this species closer to extinction faster than almost anything else. The helmeted hornbill lives in the lowland rainforests of Southeast Asia, from southern Thailand through Malaysia and into Indonesia. It is a forest specialist, depending on vast, intact tracts of old-growth rainforest, not secondary forest, not plantations, real ancient forest with towering trees and deep canopies. When that forest disappears, the hornbill doesn't relocate, it vanishes. Visually, this bird is unmistakable. A long white tail with a bold black band, dark body, bare reddish skin on the neck, and that massive casque crowning the bill. In flight, it looks heavy and deliberate, wing beats loud and rhythmic as it moves between fruiting trees. Its voice is even more distinctive, a series of maniacal, laughing hoots that rise and fall, like something between a cackle and a war cry. Once you hear it, you never forget it. Diet-wise, this hornbill is primarily a fruit eater, with figs forming a major part of its menu. And that matters because it's also one of the forest's most important seed dispersers. Large seeds that smaller birds can't swallow rely on hornbills to travel. Remove the hornbill, and certain trees stop spreading. The forest quietly begins to change shape. Breeding behavior makes the species painfully vulnerable. Pairs form long-term bonds. The female seals herself inside a tree cavity using mud, fruit pulp, and droppings, leaving only a narrow slit. For months, the male alone delivers all food to her and the chick. If the male is killed, the nest fails. Instantly, no backup, no second chance. Here's a question worth arguing. When demand creates extinction, who is actually responsible? Because poaching for the casque, combined with logging that removes nesting trees, has been catastrophic. Predators exist, but they are not the threat. Humans are. Today, populations are collapsing across much of the species' range. In some forests, the laughter has stopped entirely. And if a bird that literally holds its family's survival on its own head can be hunted out of existence, what happens to the species that depend on even less? Here's a twist that still surprises scientists. This owl was declared extinct, and then casually showed up again, as if it had just been avoiding people. For nearly a century, the forest owlet was known only from museum specimens. No calls, no sightings, no proof it still existed. Until it was rediscovered in central India in the late 1990s, quietly living in a landscape everyone thought they already understood. The forest owlet inhabits dry, deciduous forests in central India. Open woodland with scattered trees, seasonal leaf fall, and plenty of sunlight reaching the ground. This is not dense jungle. It's a working forest, often close to villages, agriculture, and roads, which means the owl's world overlaps uncomfortably well with ours. Physically, the bird is compact and broad-headed, with a pale face, piercing yellow eyes, and bold brown and white barring across the body. It lacks the ear tufts many people associate with owls, giving it a blunt, almost serious expression. Unlike most owls, it's active during the day. Yes, daytime, which immediately raises the question, why would a daylight owl survive unnoticed for so long? Its call is sharp and repetitive, more like a bark than a hoot, often given from exposed perches. Hunting happens in short, direct flights between trees. The diet includes large insects, lizards, small birds, and rodents, prey that thrives in mixed, lightly disturbed forests. In theory, that sounds adaptable. In reality, it's risky. Breeding behavior is tightly linked to old trees. The forest owlet nests in natural cavities, often in mature or decaying trunks. Cut the wrong tree, and a breeding site that took decades to form disappears in minutes. Clutches are small, and breeding success depends heavily on stable territory and low disturbance. Here's something worth debating. Can a species survive if it depends on habitats humans consider expendable? Because dry forests are often cleared first. They're labeled degraded, underused, or available. And yet for this owl, they are everything. Predators exist, larger raptors, snakes, but the dominant threat is habitat fragmentation. Roads, mining, logging, and expanding settlements carve the forest into pieces too small to support stable populations. The owl doesn't migrate, it doesn't relocate easily, it stays until it can't. Today, the forest owlet remains critically endangered, with a highly restricted range and a population that fits uncomfortably well on a single map page. And if a bird can vanish once, return briefly, and still be on the edge, what does that say about the species we haven't even noticed yet? Here's a strange imbalance to open with. This bird is jet black, tall, and elegant, and somehow still managed to disappear almost completely from a wide, open landscape. The black stilt, known in Mari as the kaki, is one of the rarest wading birds on Earth, despite living in places where visibility should be its greatest advantage. The kaki exists only in New Zealand's South Island, primarily in braided river systems fed by glaciers and alpine snowmelt. These rivers constantly shift, split, and reform, creating gravel bars, shallow channels, and open flats. For thousands of years, that instability was perfect. It kept predators guessing. It limited vegetation. It gave ground-nesting birds room to breathe. Physically, the black stilt is unmistakable. Long red legs, a slender black bill, and glossy black plumage that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. Juveniles look completely different, mottled brown and white, before slowly darkening with age. Its call is sharp and high, often repeated rapidly when alarmed. Not musical, not subtle, very clear about its discomfort. Feeding behavior is precise. The bird walks slowly through shallow water, pecking at aquatic insects, larvae, small crustaceans, and worms. It depends on clean, cold, fast-flowing rivers with exposed edges. Change the water flow, introduce pollution, or allow vegetation to take over, and the feeding grounds vanish. Breeding is where vulnerability becomes obvious. Nests are simple scrapes on open gravel. No cover, no protection. Eggs rely entirely on camouflage and distance from disturbance. Floods can wipe out nests in hours. Introduce predators, cats, stoats, ferrets, can wipe them out in minutes. Historically, flooding balanced predation. Today, river control has removed that balance. Here's a question worth arguing. When humans stabilize nature, who actually benefits? Because dams, flood control, and irrigation schemes turned wild rivers into predictable systems, and predictable systems favor predators. Not birds like the cuckoo. Hybridization adds another problem. The more common pied stilt moves into altered habitats and interbreeds with black stilts, diluting an already tiny gene pool. Conservationists now manage breeding pair by pair, sometimes removing eggs to raise chicks in captivity. Every individual matters, literally. At one point, fewer than 30 adult black stilts remained in the wild. Numbers have improved slightly through intense management, but survival still depends on constant human intervention. And if a bird born from chaos can't survive a world we've made orderly, what happens to the species whose habitats are next in line to be fixed? Let's start with a contradiction that feels almost unfair. This bird is dazzling white, loudly vocal, and incredibly visible. Yet it nearly vanished on a crowded tropical island. The Bali Mina lives only in one place on Earth, the island of Bali, Indonesia. Not the whole island, just a small corner of it, which means there was never much room for error. The Bali Mina prefers dry monsoon forest and open woodland, environments with scattered trees, seasonal rainfall, and plenty of sunlight. It's comfortable around forest edges and clearings, which should make it adaptable. But adaptation only works when the habitat stays intact. As forests were cleared for agriculture, development, and tourism, suitable territories shrank fast. Physically, the bird looks almost artificial. Pure white plumage, a long, elegant crest, jet black wingtips, and vivid blue skin around the eyes that seems almost painted on. In flight, the contrast is striking. On the ground, it's alert and upright, constantly scanning. Its calls are sharp, varied, and expressive. Whistles, chatter, and harsh alarm notes used to keep contact within small groups. Diet is flexible. The bully myna feeds on insects, larvae, fruit, seeds, and small reptiles. It forages both on the ground and in trees, often moving quickly between feeding spots. Predators include snakes and raptors, but historically, the species held its own. The real danger came from admiration. Here's a question worth arguing. When beauty creates demand, is rarity ever safe? Because the bully myna became one of the most sought-after cage birds in the world. Trapping for the illegal pet trade decimated wild populations. Even protected areas weren't safe. Birds disappeared faster than they could breed. Breeding behavior adds to the problem. Bully mynas nest in tree cavities, often reusing the same sites. Clutches are small, and pairs invest heavily in raising chicks. Remove one adult, and the entire effort collapses. There's no rapid replacement, no population buffer. By the early 2000s, the wild population dropped to fewer than 100 birds. In some years, fewer than 50. Conservationists responded with captive breeding and carefully managed releases, placing nest boxes and monitoring every individual. In captivity, the species breeds well. In the wild, survival is still a gamble. So here's the uncomfortable thought. Can a species truly be saved if it only survives under constant guard? Because without protection, the bully myna's beauty remains its greatest risk. And as we move on, the next bird faces a different problem entirely. Its survival depends not on staying hidden, but on a single island, learning how to live with something that exists nowhere else. Here's a reality check right up front. This hummingbird doesn't just live on an island. It lives on one island, and barely at that. The Juan Fernandez firecrown exists almost entirely on Robinson Crusoe Island, hundreds of kilometers off the coast of Chile. If something goes wrong there is nowhere else to go. This species occupies subtropical forest and shrubland, feeding wherever flowering plants are available. The terrain is steep, windy, and isolated, shaped by volcanic rock and salt air. Weather shifts fast, resources fluctuate. Survival here has always required precision, and for a bird that weighs less than a nickel, precision is everything. Visually, the firecrown is unforgettable, especially the male. A fiery, iridescent red head that flashes like a spark when hit by sunlight, paired with dark wings and body. Females look completely different, mostly green with subtle markings, which once led people to think they were separate species. Wings beat so fast they produce a sharp humming sound, and when the bird hovers, it seems to hang in place, suspended by vibration alone. Feeding behavior is classic hummingbird, but with island-level consequences. The firecrown feeds on nectar from native flowering plants, using a long, slender bill and rapid tongue movements. It also consumes small insects for protein. Remove the flowers, and the energy budget collapses. There is no surplus here, no backup ecosystem. Breeding is tightly seasonal. Females build tiny cup-shaped nests from plant fibers and spider silk, anchoring them to branches. Eggs are small. Chicks develop quickly. Any disruption, storms, invasive predators, habitat loss, can wipe out an entire breeding attempt. Here's something worth arguing. When an ecosystem changes, which species adapts first? The invader or the native? Because invasive plants and animals have reshaped the island. Introduced mammals prey on nests. Non-native plants replace nectar sources. Even other hummingbirds introduced by humans compete for food. Predators were once limited. Now, cats and rats are constant threats. Add deforestation and erosion, and suitable habitat shrinks further uphill. The firecrown doesn't migrate. It doesn't escape. It endures until it can't. Today, the population is small and declining. Conservation efforts focus on habitat restoration and invasive species control, but success depends on sustained action in a very small place. One storm, one disease, one misstep. And if a bird that lives nowhere else can be pushed to the edge by outsiders it never evolved to face, what happens when the next species is trapped in a world even smaller? Here's the irony. This bird was discovered by science only in the 1970s, and within a few decades, it was already fighting for survival. The hooded grebe lives in the remote, windswept plateaus of southern Argentina, in a place that feels untouched, empty, and endless, which makes its decline feel almost unbelievable. The species breeds on high-altitude freshwater lakes in Patagonia, surrounded by volcanic rock and open steppe. These lakes are cold, clear, and isolated, perfect for a bird that spends nearly its entire life on water. Outside the breeding season, the grebes move to coastal marine waters, riding waves and currents along Argentina's southern shoreline. Two very different worlds, both increasingly unstable. Physically, the hooded grebe is striking. A sleek, black and white body, vivid red eyes, and during the breeding season, a dramatic fan of chestnut feathers flaring from the head like a crown. It sits low in the water, almost submarine-like, and dives with barely a ripple. Its calls are sharp and mechanical, exchanged rapidly between mates across the lake surface. Diet is simple and specialized. Small fish and aquatic invertebrates caught during short, precise dives. Clean water is essential. So is balance. Introduce the wrong fish species and everything changes, which is exactly what happened. Here's a debate worth having. Can a single invasive species undo thousands of years of evolution? Because trout, introduced for sport fishing, now dominate many of the grebe's breeding lakes. They compete for food and prey directly on chicks. Combine that with increasing wind intensity from climate shifts, and floating nests are torn apart before eggs can hatch. Breeding behavior is highly sensitive. Pairs build floating platforms anchored to aquatic vegetation. Chicks ride on the backs of adults during their earliest days. It's an intimate system that works beautifully until waves get stronger and food becomes scarce. Then failure is fast and absolute. Predators such as gulls and mink add pressure, but the biggest threat remains human alteration of empty landscapes. Hydrology changes, introduced species, climate instability. None of it targeted the grebe directly, and yet all of it hit perfectly. Today, the hooded grebe is critically endangered, with numbers dropping sharply in recent years. Some breeding colonies have failed entirely. Conservation teams now guard nests and remove invasive fish, fighting for time in a place that rarely offers second chances. And if a bird discovered yesterday can be pushed this close to extinction today, what does that say about the species we haven't even met yet? Let's start with something that feels almost unreal. This bird has wings and chooses not to use them. The kagoo is a flightless bird found only on the island of New Caledonia. And like many island specialists, it evolved in a world where escaping predators simply wasn't necessary, which worked beautifully, right up until it didn't. The kagoo lives in dense, humid forests, especially in lowland and montane areas where leaf litter stays moist and invertebrates are abundant. It's a ground specialist moving deliberately through undergrowth with long legs and careful steps. Flight muscles are reduced, and although it can flutter short distances, real escape comes from camouflage and stillness, not speed. Physically, the kagoo is unlike any other bird. Pale gray plumage, ash-white wings marked with bold black bars, and a dramatic crest that rises when the bird is alert or agitated. When threatened, it spreads its wings wide, flashing those stripes in a sudden visual display meant to confuse predators. Its eyes are deep red, its posture upright, almost formal. The call is haunting, loud rhythmic duets exchanged between pairs, often echoing through the forest at dawn. These vocalizations aren't just territorial, they're bonding rituals. Kagoo pairs are monogamous and maintain long-term territories together, coordinating movements and defense through sound rather than sight. Diet is straightforward. Earthworms, snails, insects, and small lizards pulled from the forest floor. The bird probes with a sturdy bill, flipping leaves with precision. It doesn't migrate. It doesn't roam widely. its entire life unfolds within a small, familiar patch of forest. Here's a question worth debating. Can an animal that never learned to flee survive in a world full of pursuers? Because introduced predators changed everything. Dogs, cats, pigs, and rats now patrol the forest floor. Eggs and chicks are easy targets. Adults are often killed outright. Habitat loss from mining and logging compounds the problem, breaking forests into smaller, riskier fragments. Breeding is slow. Nests are shallow scrapes on the ground. 1 or 2 eggs at most. Parents invest heavily, but even a single predator encounter can end the cycle. Conservation efforts now include predator control and fenced refuges, essentially rebuilding the world the cuckoo evolved for. Fewer than a few thousand remain in the wild. Every population is monitored. Every loss matters. And if a bird that mastered stillness can't survive a world that never stops moving, what chance does the next one have when escape is no longer an option? Let's open with a quiet shock. This bird was presumed extinct for decades, then reappeared and still couldn't outrun trouble. Guerney's pita is one of those species that proves rediscovery doesn't equal recovery. Finding something again doesn't mean it's safe. Sometimes it just means the countdown resumes. This pita inhabits lowland evergreen forests in southern Thailand and parts of Myanmar. Not mountains, not remote highlands. Low, flat forests, the exact landscapes most likely to be logged, farmed, or converted. It lives close to the ground, in deep shade, where leaf litter stays damp and insects thrive. That habitat used to be widespread. Now it exists in fragments. Visually, this bird looks almost unreal. A bold black head, bright yellow throat, vivid blue wing patches, and a rich green back. Short tail, stocky body, strong legs built for hopping rather than flying. In good light, it looks like someone dropped a box of paint onto the forest floor, which is ironic because it spends most of its life trying not to be seen. Its call is a clear, whistled note, simple, repetitive, and surprisingly far-carrying for such a small bird. Males call from low perches to defend territory and attract mates. Movement is quick but cautious. Short hops, sudden freezes. The pita feeds on insects, snails, worms, and small invertebrates, flipping leaves and probing soil with sharp accuracy. This is a ground forager through and through. Breeding behavior is tightly tied to intact forest structure. Nests are built low, often hidden in roots or dense undergrowth. Both parents care for the chicks. Clutches are small. Survival depends on stable humidity, cover from predators, and minimal disturbance. Remove the forest canopy, and the microclimate collapses. Dry leaf litter means less food, less cover, fewer chicks. Here's a question worth debating. Can a species survive when its entire world exists below knee height? Because bulldozers don't see leaf litter. Roads don't account for microhabitats. And once the ground layer is gone, this bird has nowhere else to operate. Predators include snakes and small mammals. But again, human activity is the dominant force. Forest clearance in Myanmar has accelerated. In Thailand, remaining habitat is boxed in by agriculture and development. Populations are isolated. Movement between them is nearly impossible. Today, Guerney's pita remains critically endangered, with numbers fluctuating and habitat shrinking. Protection exists on paper. On the ground, it's fragile. And that brings us to the final thought. If a bird this colorful can disappear simply because it lives too low to be noticed, how many others are fading out beneath our feet right now without a sound? By now, these birds may feel familiar, not as names on a list, but as lives, each shaped by a place, a rhythm, a fragile balance that once worked. Flightless parrots, ocean-crossing migrants, forest hunters and ground dwellers, different continents, different stories. And yet the same ending keeps approaching. None of these species vanished overnight. They faded, slowly, quietly. One broken habitat at a time, one disrupted season, one missing call that no one noticed until it was gone. Extinction rarely arrives like a storm. More often, it slips in like silence. The truth is, what happens to them is not decided by nature alone anymore. It's shaped by what we build, what we remove, and what we choose to protect. The year 2050 isn't far away. Many of the children watching this video will still be here to see which of these birds remain and which exist only in footage like this. So here's the real question. What kind of witnesses do we want to be? The kind who watched from a distance, or the kind who paid attention while there was still time? If stories like these matter to you, if understanding the natural world helps you see our own a little differently, stay with this channel, subscribe for more wildlife documentaries, share this film with someone who loves nature, and join the conversation below. Because awareness is often where survival begins, and silence has already taken enough.